Treyarch just dropped a massive list of changes, updates, buffs, and nerfs to Black Ops 6 Zombies in Season 2 Reloaded, including a controversial nerf to the Tomb's boss fight difficulty, as well as buffs to certain augments, weapons, and so much more. Diving straight in, you can see we've already got a ton of Tomb fixes. Address an issue where shock mimics could push players out of bounds. That was really frustrating, where they grabbed you and suddenly you were thrown under the map. Really annoying. Glad that's fixed. Address an issue where the Sam Tri reward chest would still have collision after disappearing. That's of course a really obviously annoying one. I'm glad that's fixed. Address an issue where being shocked while charging the Staff of Ice would cause it to be stuck charging. I've never personally had that problem, but I can see how that can be a problem, and that's going to be really annoying because you can't use the Staff anymore. Really glad that's fixed. Address an issue where a doppelgast could spawn in the ground during a constellation trial. Address an issue where players could get stuck when jumping down from the floating rock during the wonder weapon upgrade quest. Address an issue where players joining a match during the third step of the wonder weapon upgrade quest would see a sealed portal. Address an issue where zombies spawn during a side quest would immediately die if the player was using the pheromone augment. Address an issue where some zombies spawning in the Neolithic catacombs would flicker brightly. Address an issue where the fog from a special round would not be present when choosing to continue after completing the main quest. That's a really weird bug. Address an issue where zombies would not be able to properly path to the player at a specific location in the subterranean temple. Those old school classic, glitches where you get into a corner and the zombies can't hit you sort of thing. That's fixed. Address an issue where while using a mutant injection where player armor would take damage while standing in etheric lantern flames. Yeah, that's weird. Address an issue in split screen where the lighting for player 2 would change depending on player 1's location. Leaving the dark ether nexus while building the Staff of Ice will now reset progress and Staff of Ice damage when re-entering. That's interesting. So before you could fully just leave and the progress of where you got to would be saved, but now it's going to reset. That's going to make this even harder to do in public matches now. So I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. And address an issue where the shock mimic was playing the wrong animations when slowed. That's really weird. Address an issue during the last step of the Wonder Weapon quest where zombies spawning from portals would lack animations. I never noticed that. Added a death animation to the tombs area. I don't even know where that is, but that's interesting. A death animation. Interesting. Maybe there wasn't one previously if any zombies took you down there. But here is the slightly controversial change. I'm sure a lot of people are going to be really happy about this, but it begs the question and opens a dialogue on if Treyarch should retroactively change boss fights over the course of time. Because if we go down here, final encounter, reduce the duration of boss stun effects. So you guys know full well during this boss fight, if one of those sentinel artifact and zombies like stuns you, oh my god, that lasts for such a long time and you're already like a one hit, and if they hit you again whilst you're stunned because you're slowed down, you immediately lose your dying wish or you would go down. Some people see that as a really unfair mechanic in the boss fight. Obviously, we've learned how to overcome it, but it's still really brutal when it happens. So now you'll be stunned for a lot less. And they've slightly reduced spawn counts in parties of 3 to 4 players. So that's really good because that means if you're playing 4-player, technically, that is the most difficult version of the boss fight compared to something like solo, where you really don't have a lot of zombies spawning in during this boss fight. So that's really good. However, on the other foot, is it really a good change? I don't know. I'd love to know your thoughts down below in the comment section about this, because I think Treyarch are always going to walk on a really fine line when it comes to the difficulty of a boss fight, especially when we the players have gotten used to how difficult a certain boss fight is, and then weeks after its launch it's drastically changed in a way where it makes it easier. I think a lot of people like myself really enjoy how difficult this boss fight is, and I'm someone that really enjoys a bit of difficulty when it comes to something like this, where it takes multiple attempts to actually beat it and to learn all the mechanics and everything like that. There can be arguments made about, is this boss fight a little bit too difficult when it comes to co-op, especially if you're trying to attempt this with players who aren't necessarily as clued up in zombies as other people. I've seen a lot of discourse on Twitter since these patch notes going live where people are really disappointed by this. They're saying that this is a massive L by Treyarch and that they really enjoyed the difficulty aspect of the boss fight. And if you're nerfing the difficult part of this in any way, shape or form, then you're technically taking away some of the difficulty of the boss fight. My own personal opinion from reading the patch notes makes it sound like the stun is reduced in its length, but that still doesn't mean that it's not going to be as lethal as it was before. But I guess maybe it's the argument and discussion that the length that the stun was before this patch was so long that it really was like a life or death situation if you did have that happen to you. But it sounds like the stun will end a lot quicker, meaning that you'll probably not take that second hit and lose your dying wish. We'll just have to see. But I'd love to know your thoughts down below in the comment section about these changes. I think when it comes to 3 and 4 player, I think that is a definite thumbs up from me. But the actual changing of the stun, I think we're going to have to wait and see on this one to see just how different this boss fight is going to feel, and if this really is as big a nerf as some people are making it out to be. Only time will tell, but I'd love to know your thoughts below. Now move on to Citadel Day More, where they addressed issues where players could take out of bounds damage while using the cave slide. Just an issue where players could take out of bounds damage on top of a car in the town square. Address an offset spawn in the oubliette room. Just an issue where the timer in the sanctuary would not start during the Soleil sword quest. Address some death animation locations that would clip through objects. And address an issue where an operator voice would play before revealing the paladin's brooch. And then for directed mode, they've actually made some changes, specifically the Citadel directed. They address an issue where the pickup prompt for swords would be blank after loading a save file. There's an issue where the guide would be empty if the player failed or left the sanctuary when obtaining Soleil. And address an issue where the place turn page fragment prompt on the codex would be present when the player does not have any pages. So very, very interesting and a very slight few changes there, but hopefully should make that director mode experience a bit better. But it doesn't end there for zombies changes, because we have changes to perks, including death perception, to actually make it better, with the death stare augment increasing the health threshold to activate to 20% of max health. So if you don't understand what that means, basically the death stare augment for death perception means that there is a chance that when an enemy is at low health, you will hit a critical hit that will do a crazy amount of damage that can literally insta-kill it once it's at that health. But it's complete random when it will happen, and they've increased it to activate to 20% of max health. So that's really awesome. So that's a really good addition. And then further insight augment has been updated, will now function whilst using high contrast mode, because at this point people are like, what's the point even running death perception and further insight if there is high contrast mode that lets you see zombies through walls, see them outlined? Why do we need this perk? So they've increased it to make it even more useful whilst using high contrast mode. So that should make it even better. In Deadshot Daiquiri, just an issue where aim would not snap to the head when standing in a Vulturade fetid upgrade cloud. That's so specific. Really glad, because some people definitely have been caught out by that. Now field upgrades. Oh my gosh, Dark Flare's been updated, guys. They've increased Dark Flare base damage from 40 to 55% of base zombie max health, increased its Supernova tick damage from 25 to 55% of base zombie max, and increased Dark Flare's Supernova explosion from 150 to 300% of base zombie max health. This is going to make this thing even better. I definitely think these changes were needed, because it just wasn't really performing like the other field upgrades. It's already been buffed before. It's now been buffed again. I remember making a video when this thing was absolutely insane against the Citadel boss fight. It melted it. So maybe it will be even better against it now. This only affects base zombies, but who knows? There might be some spaghetti code that might make it good against boss fights. Maybe we'll have to test that out for a video. Let me know if you want to see it. Then for score streaks, mutant injection. They've addressed an issue that prevented players from using melee if they were awarded melee macchiato or using a mutant injection. I mean, that makes sense. Then loot. They've added the following weapons and supports to the mystery box and loot drops. So we've got the PPSH, Cypher, Feng, TR2, War Machine, and hand cannon now in the mystery box and loot drops. So that's really good. Normally we have to wait until the following season, so like season 3 for this sort of stuff, but getting it in reloaded, really, really nice to see. And obviously will make Dark Ops like Box Addict even easier. Plus, if you just want to use these weapons and you might not have loaded in with them and you want to find them, you can now get them out of the box. Oh, now enemies. So Vermin. Just an issue where Vermin would not be affected by the Rampage Inducer, and then Armored Zombies will now receive critical damage when insta-kill is active. That's really good to see. Now let's move on to some activities. So, wow, there's quite a few here. So they've addressed an issue where the sound trial chest could disappear without claiming the rewards. That's just cruel. Why was that a thing? But they fixed it, which is great. Just an issue where the PhD flopper sound trial would not progress properly. Just an issue where weapon score streaks awarded from sound trials could only have 1 ammo. That's really bad. There's just an issue where hip fire sound trials would not progress properly when using single fire weapons. So pretty good changes there. Then for challenges, oh, here we go. So they addressed an issue that prevented the Prestige 10 challenge random elements from tracking properly, and then just the following challenges: Titan felling, where special enemy kills will now count towards this challenge. Then for UI, Addressed an issue that could prevent players from editing a Gobblegum pack. Addressed an issue that prevented eliminations with the Frostodyne M23 from counting correctly. Addressed an issue that prevented the firing range from being accessible while on the confirmed loadout screen. Addressed an issue where weapon stats in the after action report would list starting loadout instead of finishing loadout. After action will now display Gobblegums earned during the match. Thank you, Treyarch. That's actually really damn good, because otherwise we're just having to notice it when it appears. You can very easily miss it if you're going for a really high round game or a long game, so that's fantastic. And they corrected some typos, and we know they had some typos in some intels. They spelt Fortnite wrong, but they've corrected that, and maybe there were some more typos as well. Then for graphics, this is pretty good. Address an issue where the etheric lantern flame effects can be stuck on the screen after using a self-revive. Address an issue where the effects on the staff would not display properly when in third person. And then the classic, addressed various stability issues. But now there are some pretty big changes Treyarch are making globally that affect zombies, and it comes down to some of the most meta weapons. Now, I'm really surprised to see this, because we've seen, you know, quite a lot of weapon buffs and nerfs over the last few months. This clearly states that these are multiplayer and zombies changes. When it comes to assault rifles, the GPR91 is an assault rifle that I've actually really been loving lately. I've seen a lot of people in my comments suggesting I should use it, that it's really slept on, and I agree. It's absolutely awesome. So they're making some adjustments to it to help builds and playstyles that targets its slower TTK, and making improvements to the CHF barrel and rapid fire to make these more appealing choices. So if we go and look, we can see that post-patch, this now has additional damage range, which is obviously really good. It's going to make this thing a lot better. So we can see that the damage range, max damage range, has been increased. The damage is stayed the same. And then we can see for medium damage range, that's now also been increased as well. And then for minimum damage range, that's obviously stayed exactly the same. But we see there's some adjustments to the CHF barrel, where the vertical recoil penalty has been reduced by 15% and the horizontal recoil penalty reduced by 5%. Then rapid fire has been increased from 7 to 10, and the penalty for recoil has been increased from 25 to 30%. I think these are really good balanced changes and should make this gun even better than it already was, because to me, it's up there as like the top 3 best ARs in zombies. But if we scroll down, the Feng 82, I love this gun. It's obviously so good in the meta for Black Ops 6 zombies. They said they wanted to play more aggressively than it has been, so giving it some significant handling and mobility improvements. So they recognize it's an AR LMG hybrid, and I fully agree. It's really, really nice to use, really mobile. So they've done a lot of changes. The pre-fire delay has been improved, slide to fire speed, dive to fire, aim down sights, movement speed, crouch movement speed, sprinting movement speed, ADS. This is all really good. So it should feel even better in zombies now than it was as it already was, which it was absolutely incredible. And if we go to Marksman rifles for the SWAT, improving the burst delay, that's really cool. When compared to the AEK, should be harder to hit the one burst kill at range, but easier to fire offset subsequent bursts. I can't talk. It's a lot of words. Treyarch could put a lot of words here. And then the same for the Sarkov 762, with an improvement to shot queuing to prevent accidental follow-up shots and spamming the trigger. The AEK, excited to have a fully auto AEK in Black Ops 6. There's an issue causing the headshot damage to be lower. These values have now been corrected. Okay, interesting. And that's also with the full auto mod. So that's now increased a lot with the CHF barrel, increased by like 0.2. And the same for the base headshot damage multiplier. So again, everything that you're seeing here is going to be reflected in Black Ops 6 zombies as well. And then all interesting melee weapons. They're improving melee lunge distances for 2-hit kill weapons. Our melee tuning philosophy revolves around keeping melee movement speeds the same. Means hits to kill, attack speed, and lunge distance are main tools for creating unique feeling melee weapons. More hits to kill can be a big disadvantage, so we continue to make sure that attack speed and lunge are providing sufficient upside. So everything's been updated here for the knife, the baseball bat, and the power drill. And look at that lunge distance increase by 47%. That's going to be unreal now in zombies, like it already was. And the speed, I just love it. This is great. Then they've also nerfed the attachment for the underbarrel, increasing its ammo count by 1, the ADS zoom level, and projectile velocity, and reduce initial vertical velocity. So it should be a little bit more usable now in zombies. So it looks like Treyarch have dropped a ton of changes to zombies here with this update. Not a ton of like massive, significant, but just a lot of quality of life and a lot of things which are going to just make the game a lot better, especially when it comes to that after action report. That's a big one, as well as, of course, nerfing the tomb boss fight subtly, and as well as dark arc flare changes and some of the augments for depth perception, that's really good because, yeah, it kind of needed to get a little bit better. I'd love to know your thoughts down below. If you enjoyed this video, you found it informative, please do me a favor, drop this a thumbs up. I'd really appreciate that. If you want to see the full reveal for Season 2 Reloaded for Zombies, so you can see exactly what's coming when the update drops tomorrow and throughout the next few weeks, check this video that's appearing on your screen right now. It'll be somewhere there. Go and click it. I'll be with you in just a moment.